The internet in the UK has been locked down. No, it actually has. It's taken everyone a bit surprised, but now you need ID to access everything from adult sites, to Reddit, to Discord, to even possibly Wikipedia. The whole thing is a real mess and opinions are extremely divided, even mine. So let's dive into all of it and what it means for you right here on Scroll Deep with me, Benedict Townsend, the show that keeps up with internet nonsense so you don't have to. Ever since the internet was invented in 2015, many people have asked whether there should be any kind of identity verification, especially to stop children accessing adult content. And it's always been a very fraught issue. It's always been a bit of a what if. Well, last week in the UK, it became reality. Millions of UK users opened platforms like Reddit, Discord, Blue Sky, and were greeted with a new requirement: age verification. They were like, hey, is this illegal? Hey, it feels illegal. Now, if you don't submit a picture of a government ID or have one of your selfies algorithmically verified, we'll come back to that, as belonging to an adult, then 18 plus content on many platforms will just be inaccessible to you. It's a result of the 2023 Online Safety Act, which aims to protect children and adults online from illegal, harmful, and age-inappropriate content. It's content that I can't actually say out loud, but obviously it's like adult content, any content that promotes harm, any negative content around eating, that kind of stuff. It's specifically aimed to protect children, and on a top surface level, that does seem good. But there are a lot of caveats and weird downsides to this act, with issues around data, privacy, safety risks, including banning Wikipedia. Yes, it sounds like clickbait, but no, the government wants to label Wikipedia as a Category 1 site, which is the top category in terms of severity. This is basically because the way that they've constructed this, it's not about like how adult the website is, it's kind of mostly about how many people visit the website, weirdly, and because a lot of people visit Wikipedia, that puts it in Category 1 as far as I understand it, which is very strange. But it basically means Wikipedia would have to enforce ID verification on its moderators as well as its visitors. Wikimedia, which is the company that owns Wikipedia, fun, they've now actually taken the government to the High Court in the UK, saying, quote, "We are taking action now to protect Wikipedia's volunteers, as well as the global accessibility and integrity of free knowledge." In court, the site's lawyers even floated the idea of a monthly quota of users in order to keep it below Category 1, meaning that to access Wikipedia, you'd have to basically cap how many people can visit it, and it would almost be like buying a ticket to a concert where only so many people are allowed in, which seems bad. That's still unfolding. It seems like the government is not super set on this situation. Wikipedia is like the last good source of like proper information on the internet ever since they broke Google with AI. So we kind of need Wikipedia to be available to kids and to everyone. It does seem like the government is not like hard set on this though. I think the government admits that they're going to have to finagle this a little bit. Now there are some interesting exceptions to this. Whereas the Act is quite strict on adult content, it's also more liberal and more protective of journalistic content. Social media sites and sites in general are now required not to arbitrarily remove or infringe on journalistic content. Social medias are required to protect, quote, democratically important content, such as posts supporting or opposing particular political parties or policies. On the one hand, they're trying to kind of clamp down on adult stuff. On the other hand, they're actually trying to protect journalistic stuff, which again seems good in theory. Now the new law requires you to upload a valid ID, like a driver's license, passport, or scan your face. Of course, the face scanning has already been tricked. People have been tricking the face scanning using the guy from Death Stranding, which is very funny. I don't know why they would even introduce that. That seems so easy to trick. But there are obviously even more obvious ways of getting around this, like using a VPN, right? If you don't know what a VPN is, it's a thing that basically disguises your location online and you can kind of circumvent a lot of online barriers. And that sounds illegal, but easy there, Pink Pantherus. It's perfectly legal. And since the law came into effect, VPNs have been the most downloaded things on the Apple App Store because everyone's just getting VPNs in order to bypass having to upload their ID. Now, of course, websites like Netflix and other places, they have the tech to stop VPNs. So if the government really wanted to, they could also clamp down on people using VPNs to avoid the law, but who knows if they'll do that. Also, we have to bring up, be careful when trusting a VPN VPN. How do the VPNs make their money? Instead of giving your data to a website, you're just giving all your data and your location to a VPN. There are lots of very upstanding VPNs, but at the same time, everything these days is just about selling data. So you have to ask, are the VPNs doing this out of the kindness of their heart, or do they want your data? Now, while a lot of sites have already started to comply, including places like Blue Sky, Discord, as I mentioned, many have just not really bothered. LBC has found at least 50 sites using a simple Google search that either had no age verification or just had very flimsy checks that you could just easily overcome. Thank you for this important reporting, LBC. I love the idea of them just sat at the computer trying to think of adult sites that they can look up in the name of work. There's also an interesting other dimension to this, which is that you have to ask, well, there is one particular site that's only for fans, the one, that's actually a British company. And that company has actually now become a huge part of the British economy. That company paid $148 million in corporation tax last year. So this website that's only for fans paid more into the British taxpayer system than Google did. And if you're limiting websites like that, does that take money out of the government's pocket? Possibly. But at the same time, do we want to stop children going on that website? I would say yes. And I think if you're protesting that too hard, I think that's weird. There's also another fundamental problem with asking people to mass upload their IDs, which is that these websites and these systems cannot stop losing people's data. It's insane. I feel like every 2 days there's a story that's like, whoops, we lost all your data. I think Co-op had one the other week. There was like a giant bank. Like, it is bi-weekly now. Like, is bi-weekly twice a week or every 2 weeks?
Twice weekly is twice weekly, and bi-weekly is every 2 weeks.
Okay, so not every 2 weeks, twice a week. You're seeing these companies just lose all this data or get hacked. Like, it is insane that all these companies expect us to have to hand over all our data when they cannot protect it. Now, obviously, we are talking about the UK government here. You'd expect them to have a little bit of tech security around this stuff. But I don't know. Someone will probably get hold of it. Russia will get hold of it. And then that will be bad. I mean, there was actually a recent, very famous example of this, which was the controversial dating app T, which allowed women to anonymously share information about men. It made a lot of men very angry, because kind of the idea of the app in principle is that, like, if someone's like a really terrible guy, you can be like, look out for him, ladies. And this made men very annoyed. And then they hacked the app, and there was a significant data breach. 72,000 images were leaked, including 13,000 images that were used for identity verification, so either selfies or photo ID pictures that people have put into T to verify who they were. So that's a classic example of identity verification being leaked. That's T-sis. Now, there's already a petition online to repeal the Online Safety Act, nearly 400,000 signatures. And as we all know, Change.org, the government petition site, works every time. That is a real website that definitely exists. I love that people still have faith in like Change.org, and like, how naive can you be? Like, the government doesn't even register that it's happened. It's so funny when people are like, oh my God, we have 1 million signatures. There's going to be a snow day tomorrow. No one has to go to school. That's what you guys sound like. They're going to ignore you. The government just does what it wants. I'm not saying that's good. I'm just saying they will ignore you because they always do. All right, so let's ask, is this a good thing? Well, I do think when it comes to the idea of shielding kids from adult material, I am on board with that, all right? We have enough data and time and weird kids to show that exposing young people to crazy adult material and just having it be so accessible is definitely bad for them. It's bad for their brains, it's bad for their development. The knock-on effects of that have also been seen, I think, in the way young people, especially young men, approach sex, approach gender relations, the kind of misogyny and sexism you see from very young boys. You know, the show Adolescence kind of dealt with this. I know that that's not a documentary, but that's a show that deals with real world themes. At some point, we were going to have to deal with the fact that like 12-year-olds were seeing this stuff they shouldn't see. And I think that's good. I think it's also true that it was never going to be a clean process. You were never going to be able to do this in a way that made everyone happy initially. Look, it's already happened now. I don't think they're going to repeal it, but probably the best case scenario is that they just carve out endless exceptions where they're like, okay, the adult stuff is censored, but you can go on Wikipedia. But in terms of cancelling it, I think it's a bit of like the horse has already bolted. You know, it's rare that governments go back on stuff like this, especially because it came into force like 2 years ago. Well, it was past 2 years ago, now it's kicking in. Like, this has been coming, just none of us were aware that it was going to hit this hard. Now, there's a lot of people who are against it. It's one of those weird coalitions where you have people who are way on the left and people who are very on the right, and they weirdly agree, but for like strange reasons. Like Elon is very against it. He thinks it's censorship, and he only likes censoring things that are mean of him personally. Nigel Farage is against it. I mean, who knows what Nigel Farage believes about anything. But then you also have like, proper, educated left-wing people who know about freedom, who know about the internet, who are like this completely attacks freedom of speech, internet privacy. There's a lot of like personal liberty arguments, like a right to anonymity, a right to have the government not know what websites you're going on, very fundamental top-level freedom stuff. And again, a lot of just data privacy concerns of like, do you really want everyone putting their passport on the internet when they don't have to? Plus also, a lot of people, they want to go on their adult websites and they don't want to be made to like upload their photograph to some adult website because that's so embarrassing. So, that's the one thing that unites everyone on the internet. Being a horny freak. I mean, the kind of slightly more conspiratorial thinking around these things is always that, it was never about protecting children. It was always about removing anonymity. It was always about harvesting data. I mean, certainly them going after Wikipedia doesn't help that argument, because how does that protect children? Yay, now they can't learn about anything. But what do you think? I think the opinions are going to be very split. I think people at top level are very against any kind of internet control like this, but also we did have to tackle the issue of children online at some point. I think all children should be banned from the internet until the age of, I don't know, at this point, maybe it'd be better without it at all. Imagine just being outside, touching grass. What a life that would lead. Let me know your thoughts in the comments down below. Keep it civil, keep it nice, have a nice debate going on. And now we come to the secret question for the people who made it all the way to the end. What is your go-to pizza order? Yes. I like a bit of aubergine on a pizza. No, not aubergine, sorry, artichoke on a pizza. I like how you all went, ew, at the thought of aubergine. I'm Benedict Townsend, this has been Scroldy. Make sure to follow for all the latest internet nonsense. Bye!